our little practice quiz part of today, it counts in homework. One of the things you're expected to know is domain and range. So here's an example of a square root graph. First of all, would you have known that was the square root graph? Like, would you have known its name if it walked in the door? Square root of x. That's what it is. Except this one's been moved. We're going to say it's been moved over so that that's at 2. If I asked you its domain and its range and what the equation is, because, like, there must be something in here if it's been moved over to. Can you answer those 3 questions? Since you're going to have a partner in a minute for the actual quiz, I'd love for you to talk to the kid next to you about it. You think that's, obviously, there must be a 2, and it must go on the inside because I put an arrow. It can't get much more clear than that. But I hope you know what to do with the 2. Talk to that kid next to you and then see if their domain and range are the same as yours once you're both done. Okay, so on this quiz in a couple minutes, you'd have had to know that that was x minus 2 because it got moved to the right 2. Okay? You get how this has been moved to the right 2? And that's how we do that, with a minus on the inside. That might seem wrong, and you'd be right that it's supposed to seem wrong. The stuff on the inside is the opposite of what you would expect. All right. Next thing is the domain is left to right. How far to the left did this go? 2. How far to the right? It's never going to stop, so infinity. And there's one thing wrong with what I just wrote. Sydney Ross, what's wrong with what I just wrote? Should be a bracket on that 2 because it touches 2. Very good. All right. Now, Maddie M in the back. The range is how low to how high. So what do you say? 0 and infinity. Very good. Do I put brackets or parentheses around what? Bracket, parenthesis. Very good. Raise your hand if you were perfect on that part. Nice. Next kind. What if I give you one that's got 3 changes to it? There's a negative in front. I'm giving you a word bank right now to tell me these changes. You got to use the word vertical or horizontal once. You got to say the word up once. And you got to say the word right. What are the 3 changes? Use the words I just told you. And say, what are the 3 changes or transformations that have happened? Oh, one more thing. The word flip is not good because there's a word that you officially get credit for that starts with an R that means flip. Can anybody name the R? I don't want to say the R word. The word that starts with R, okay, that means flip. Say it if you know it. Reflection. Very good. So that should be in your answer too. All right, now, roll of the dice. Here, check with the kid next to you quick, because I'm about to ask you, and it might be good to have checked it first. Talk to the kid next to you. Teo, the dice chose you. What does that mean?
It reflects vertically.
Vertical reflects. Very good. How did you know it was vertical?
Because it's on the outside.
Good. Vertical on the outside. And then there's horizontal on the inside. Dumb little thing I made up called high. I didn't actually make it up. Another teacher did. High vo. Horizontal on the inside and vertical on the outside. That's what that stands for. And it reminds you. So if I'm on the inside, I guess I'm doing horizontal things. But the word for that would be right. 4. And last but not least, Ruby, what's the 6? Up 6. Raise your hand if you would have had that perfectly right. Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to add one more thing that you'd have to know. That's the new stuff for today. If I put a 2 on the outside of a function, I've never told you what that does. That's a new thing. That is not a reflection. That is called a stretch. Now it's still on the outside, so high-vo will help you figure it out. Horizontal inside, vertical outside. Well, this is on the outside, so it's vertical. That's called a vertical stretch. Now I want you to see what it does to the graph. You know this is going to move 4 to the right, so it's a V-shaped move 4 to the right, which is kind of like that. And a stretched out V, it's kind of like you grabbed it with, like, these little, the red things are like little hands, and you stretched it up twice as tall as it used to be. Do you see it got narrower too? There was a toy back when I was a kid called the Stretch Armstrong, and he was like a superhero that could stretch. So you'd grab him and you'd pull him, and he would like get twice as tall, but he would also get skinnier. Do you get how that would work? If you had something that's like made out of stretchy stuff and you pulled it up twice as tall, you get narrower too, wouldn't it? Okay, so it's kind of like this V shape got stretched, and the hands went up twice as high. So that was a vertical stretch. All right. Why is it over to the right? Because of that. All right. What do you think is the opposite of a stretch? Shrink. The opposite of a stretch is a shrink. If I put a 1/2 in the front, I just vertically, because it's on the outside, shrunk it. This would be half as tall. Do you get there's a superhero that is called Ant-Man, and he can shrink down to super tiny size, which gives him, you know, some extra abilities. And I don't know, seems like one of the dumber superpowers to me, but I know the movie tries to show how that can be really powerful. But anyway, so Ant-Man can be like half as big, or actually Ant-Man is like 1/10 as big, so maybe 1/20th as big. Do you get that this is shrinking, whereas a whole number would be stretching? Does that make sense to you? All right, so if you understood that, here's a typical test question. If I put a 1/2 in front of an absolute value that has a +3 in it, you would have to be able to tell me what two things were done to this function. Hint, use the word vertical or horizontal, and use the word left or right, or maybe you have to use the words up or down. What are the two things that have been done to this? I'll pause while you talk to the kid next to you. Okay, I heard some quality conversations there. I hope you knew it was vertical because it's on the outside. So you had to say vertical. Why? Because it's a high-vo. That's on the outside. It has to be vertical. And then it's a vertical shrink. Why? Because it's multiplying by a half is going to make it smaller. It's half as tall. Then this +3 should have been left 3. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Awesome. Now here is the graph of that. First of all, I'm going to take a V shape. I'm going to move it left 3, just like that. And then how do I make it half as tall? This is going to look weird to some of you. It used to be this tall. Now it's going to be half that tall. This point used to be that tall. Now it's half that tall. And I know this looks weird. It's like, but think about it like somebody grabbed this and squished it down half as tall as it was. I know it got wider. I know. If you took me and you squished me down to half as tall, wouldn't I get wider too? Know what I mean? Like, I know it'd be hard to picture that, but so that blue one's like the original one that got moved left 3, and this black one is the one that we finished with because it got half as tall. All right, now if I'll remind you, that spot there is 3 spots to the left. You should be able to tell me this new graph with the black one. What's its domain and its range? Domain and range. That's a typical question that's on your quiz in like 2 minutes. Isn't domain just left, right? How far to the left does it go? Infinity. How far to the right does it go? Infinity. Negative infinity to infinity. Don't forget, there is such a thing as negative infinity. It's the one that's way to the left is negative infinity. And then the range. Mackenzie, what'd you get?
0.
0 is correct. Does it touch 0?
Yeah.
So,
Bracket.
comma,
Infinity.
All right. One last thing you have to be able to do on your little quiz that you're taking in a minute is to make points. If I give you this graph, can you tell me if 3 comma 1 is a correct point? If I stick in 3, do I really get 1? Yes, you do. Because look, 3 minus 2 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. It worked. I put in 3, 1. It worked. Okay? If I had just told you the 3, you could have figured out the 1 part. If I had just said, put in 3, and you would have gone, okay, put in 3, and you'd have figured out that this came out to 1, so you'd know the answer was 1. All right. So 3 is a good point to put in. Would you please find me 2 more points that would work? 3 worked. What else would work? Let's try something, like try 5. And then you go, oh, 5 didn't work very well. Because if you put in 5, you'll get the square root of 3, and nobody knows what it is. So don't pick 5 then. Put in something else. If you found a number that works, would you please say that number loudly? 6. 1 second. So the 6 goes here. 6 minus 2 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Raise your hand if you had 6, 2. That was a good call. We're going to pause the video for a second. Okay. So we tried 6. It worked. Somebody else must have found another point that worked. 11 works. Now, I know that's like a weird point because 11 is going to go off the graph, but I'm just going to show it works. Square root of 11 minus 2 is really square root of 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. So 11, 3. Usually our graphs only go out to 10, but it's not a wrong point. It just might be slightly off the graph. One last point that actually would fit on the graph. Yes?
1.
If you stick in a 1, I'm going to put a 1 right here, and I want to make sure you realize that'd be the square root of negative 1. And the calculator would not like that. 2 would work. If I put in a 2, square root of 2 minus 2 is square root of 0. Square root of 0 is not something to be afraid of. It's equal to 0. That works. Yay. You put in a 2, and you got square root of 0 is 0. 2, 0. Awesome. Okay, so you got to be able to find points like that. That's the last thing that's kind of hard. Now, you're going to have a partner to do the Schoology quiz. But, wait, yes? You'll be able to tell on this test, it's multiple choice. So they're going to be asking you, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? Okay. All right. And on the test, though, in general, if there's a point that just goes barely off, like 1 or 2 off the graph, then it's probably okay to just graph that. All right. So this is a double thing to work on your partner with. The first thing is, I think it's going to only take you like 5 minutes, maybe 7, to do the quiz. A lot of it's multiple choice. It's going to be easy. It's like 7 questions. Okay, you'll finish that with your partner super quick. When you're done with that, there's like a worksheet part where you just open a PDF and there's a very small number of problems. Complete that with your partner. You could easily walk out of here with no homework if you work together well with that person. Okay, so these 2 rows. In fact, let's keep it simple. This row stay there. You guys, this row, slide over that way until you're 6 inches apart from their desk. You guys, these 2 rows, slide next to each other. You 2, 6 inches apart. 6 inches apart. Start the Schoology quiz. You can use virtual scratch paper. There's a couple you're going to want to sketch the graph. Not a work time, no phones. This is a little practice test.
It's a vertical reflection. Left.
It only counts as homework.
And down. No, up. No, you cannot trust it.
Do you understand? But for right now, I don't understand what. Are we just gonna do the whole quiz for both of you? That's not okay. Alright, so who's ever right? Is this the right one? Yeah. Okay, so yours needs to be on the quiz.
Well, I have it on scratch. These questions on me.
Just let's read it. He's on his phone, and you got the. Fine.
Would it be the
The second one.
You have the equation. You want to put arrows in it? Yeah.
Why is that?
So it'd be like.
Yeah.